A beast as old as the wind and as unflappable as the earth once walked beneath the Galapagos golden sun. It was a living monument to time, slowly moving, patient as the tides, and carrying its house on its back. When the globe was still big and full of peaceful areas where such creatures could live fearlessly, the Pinta Giant Tortoise, Chelonoidis abingdonii, was a whisper from a time when nature fashioned giants and allowed them to move unhindered. Its shell, which arched high like the domes of long-gone temples, was a work of evolutionary art rather than just armor. In contrast to its cousin's domed shells, its own was shaped like a saddleback, an adaptation meant to help it survive in a place where resources were scarce. It would climb high, searching for the last obstinate leaves clinging to branches when drought struck and the lower plants withered under the relentless equatorial sun. Its ability to wait, adapt, and endure was the key to its endurance. A heart as steady as the cadence of the ocean beat beneath that aged shell, beneath the ridged and broken skin that had seen 100 summers. A heart that beat with slow, measured patience instead of frantic desperation. They did not lead a life of haste. They had the luxury of seeing millennia pass and the planet alter and evolve like sand under the waves since time itself bowed to their command. The fact that some of them survived for more than 150 years is evidence of their skill at waiting. However, patience is no defense against human greed. In the past, Pinta Island was teeming with them, giants gliding across the volcanic rock like silent spirits, their shadows extending far below the blazing sky. Then the ships arrived. Wind-borne wooden ships, crowded with sailors who saw nothing but rations for arduous and protracted journeys. In the dark, swaying holds, hundreds of tortoises were lifted onto ships and flipped onto their backs, packed like grain sacks. Their slow metabolisms were a harsh gift to those who took them away, but they were ideal provisions since they could last for months without food or water. Their limbs would flap as they lay helplessly in the belly of those vessels until they were killed one by one. In just a few decades, a species that had been shaped by millions of years of patience was destroyed. And the devastation continued even after the sailors departed. Men brought goats to Pinta Island without considering the repercussions. They were first only a few, abandoned to proliferate. But they multiplied, quickly, unrelentingly, and without stopping. The goats devoured everything, whereas the tortoise had just taken what it required. The island became a desolate wasteland as the once luxuriant greenery was taken away. There was just rock and dust where there had been food and shelter. The already dwindling tortoises started to disappear. They vanished into the void of history one by one, their kind vanishing as the world looked on in ignorance. Then a finding was made in 1971. One tortoise. One survivor. Lonesome George. Among the remains of his people, a living relic stands solitary. He came to represent both what was still there and what had been lost. In a frantic attempt to discover one final opportunity to carry on his line, scientists combed every island and every potential match. In the hopes of a miracle, they matched him with females of closely related species. However, despite his patience, George was unable to revive the dead. He bore the burden of his missing family on his wide, weathered back for 40 years. He was a king without a kingdom, a phantom of a realm that had vanished, and he lived in peaceful alone, wandering his perimeter. To see him, to see the last of something valuable, people traveled from all over the world. Then he vanished on June 24, 2012 *. In the morning, his body was discovered, still as stone and without movement. After decades of pulsing with the silent endurance of the centuries, the heart had finally stopped beating. And with it came the final breath of an entire species. No funeral was held. No one left to cry for him, therefore there were no pleas for grief from others of his kind. The waves brushed the coast as they always had, unconcerned with the death of another creature in a world that forgets too readily, and the breeze carried no elegy. Fire and thunder are not the only signs of extinction. It can be a whisper at times. A name that the living no longer use. A shadow that no longer covers the ground. Is extinction, however, really the end? Or is it a scar that aches in the hearts of people who remember it? Lonesome, the fact that George's body is still in a museum serves as a reminder of what was and will never be. His story is recorded in absence rather than ink as he stands behind glass, his flesh frozen in time. He speaks, a quiet warning, a plea etched into history, but he does not move or breathe. Because even though the Pinta Giant Tortoise is no longer with us, its memory endures. Maybe there are still giants to save. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe for more interesting videos.